She was hiding from the media. No press conference, no interviews, and no questions from the reporters. But last night, she appeared on CNN for her first ever joint interview with her running mate, and this was a disaster. Harris discussed her controversial shifts on fracking, immigration, and her vision for the future, leaving us with more questions than answers. Did she admit to political flip-flops? Or is this a strategic pivot? What's up with her bold promise of a bipartisan cabinet? Vice President Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, appeared on CNN at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for their first joint interview since becoming the Democratic presidential ticket. The interview provided a better, if somewhat chaotic, look into Harris's positions and plans for the presidency. While Harris aimed to contrast her vision with Trump's, her responses raised more questions than answers. On the other hand, Walz tried to reinforce his role as a strong supporter, but some of his statements were less than convincing. Harris addressed why she shifted on key issues like fracking and immigration, claiming her values haven't changed, but that her time as VP has given her a new perspective. Remember, she supported banning fracking in 2019. The vice president's stance on fracking is crucial to her chances in Pennsylvania, an oil-rich battleground state with 19 electoral college votes at stake in November, potentially determining the election outcome. But when Bash asked if she still wanted to ban fracking, Harris responded, "No, I will not ban fracking." During the 2020 vice presidential debate against Mike Pence, Harris did not clearly express her stance on fracking. Instead, she emphasized that Joe Biden, the Democratic nominee, would not ban fracking if elected president. Harris said despite the shifts in position, her values had not changed. But Republicans swiftly criticized Harris's remarks, accusing her of admitting that the Inflation Reduction Act was a Trojan horse for the Green New Deal. During the interview, Harris highlighted the Biden-Harris administration's Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, a significant climate law for which she cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. Harris said, "We've already created over 300,000 new clean energy jobs." This claim needs context. The 300,000 figure from the Inflation Reduction Act includes promised and actual jobs, with some not yet filled. Climate Power's June report listed 312,900 promised jobs from 585 projects announced by May 2024. But this includes temporary and long-term positions. One of the most personal moments came when Harris described the call from President Biden announcing he was stepping aside. Harris shared new details about when President Joe Biden informed her he wouldn't seek a second term. Recalling the call, Harris said, "And the phone rang. And it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do, and I asked him, 'Are you sure?' And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it." Harris emphasized that her initial reaction wasn't about herself, but Biden. "My first thought was about him, to be honest." She praised Biden's leadership, stating, "I think history is going to show a number of things about Joe Biden's presidency." Reflecting on her tenure, Harris described it as one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. She defended Biden's leadership, saying, "He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president." She reaffirmed her respect for Biden's presidency, stating she is so proud to have served alongside him. Her focus on Biden's qualities was an apparent effort to unify the party, but she also revealed an unexpected twist. If elected, she'd appoint a Republican to her cabinet. Harris has promised to hit the ground running on day one, with plans to support and strengthen the middle class. But what exactly does this mean? Harris emphasizes a return to middle-class support and highlights the American Rescue Plan's impact, specifically its boost to the child tax credit. She claims, "When we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit, we cut child poverty in America by over 50%. But facts reveal a more modest 46% reduction, which only lasted for 1 year before child poverty rates spiked again. Harris is now advocating for restoring the $3,600 credit and introducing a new $6,000 credit for newborns. As always, her discussion of economic achievements seemed to fall short of expectations. While she laid out a plan focused on affordability, polls show that more voters still trust Trump on economic issues. Harris's explanation that the Biden administration's work on inflation and cost-cutting is good work, but not enough, could be seen as too little, too late. On immigration, Harris sidestepped questions about border policy implementation delays and criticized Donald Trump for derailing a bipartisan border bill. She committed to pushing for this legislation again if elected. Walz also addressed why a bipartisan border deal failed earlier this year. He blamed former President Donald Trump for blocking the legislation. Critics argue this evasion did little to address why similar policies weren't implemented sooner. Foreign policy was also a topic. Harris reiterated her support for Israel's defense while expressing serious concern about civilian casualties in Gaza. She emphasized her commitment to a two-state solution and highlighted the need to secure the release of hostages held by Hamas. Harris's shifting positions on fracking and immigration, alongside her pledge to appoint a Republican to her cabinet, underscore the challenges she faces in bridging divides and convincing voters of her constituency. Meanwhile, Walz's defensive stance on his military record and personal life adds another layer of complexity to the Democratic ticket. But whether these shifts will solidify their positions or fuel further skepticism remains to be seen. Voters now have to decide if Harris and Walz's evolving positions and promises are enough to earn their trust.